In 2016, the world got a peek behind a curtain it was never meant to see. The leak of 11.5 million confidential documents, soon known as the Panama Papers, exposed a secret global system where world leaders, billionaires, and criminals were all playing the same game, hiding their wealth from public view. It was one of the biggest data leaks in history, and for a second, it felt like the whole rotten structure was about to come crashing down. But what if I told you that the leak changed almost nothing? 10 years later, the system is still running, and it's bigger and more sophisticated than ever. The same networks of lawyers, the same secretive jurisdictions, and the same legal loopholes are being used right now to siphon unimaginable wealth out of the global economy and into a parallel financial universe. The Tax Justice Network has estimated that anywhere between $21 and $32 trillion in financial assets are sitting offshore in secrecy jurisdictions, largely untaxed. In this video, we're going to talk about the Panama Papers, what they tell us about this secret global economy, and the three major tools that the ultra-wealthy and criminal use to hide their wealth. Let's start from the Panama Papers in 2016. It all started when an anonymous source, John Doe, contacted a German newspaper and offered them data, a lot of data, 11.5 million documents making up 2.6 terabytes, all from inside one of the most secretive law firms in the world, Mossack Fonseca. Mossack Fonseca was at the time based in Panama, a country long known for financial secrecy, and Mossack Fonseca was a shell company factory. For 40 years, it had specialized in one thing, creating anonymous offshore companies for a global clientele. The firm has set up over 300,000 of these ghost companies in its lifetime, working with some of the world's biggest banks like HSBC, UBS, to serve clients in more than 200 countries. The data was so enormous that no single newsroom could handle it. The German paper partnered with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, ICIJ, which then built a team of over 370 reporters from 80 countries. They spent a full year meticulously combing through the files. When the story finally broke to the public, the documents exposed the hidden financial dealings of 12 current or former head of states and more than 100 other public officials worldwide. The then Prime Minister of Iceland was forced to resign after the papers revealed that he and his wife had an undeclared interest in an offshore company while Iceland banks were in crisis. In Pakistan, the Supreme Court eventually disqualified the then Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif from office once it was discovered that his family had used offshore companies to acquire luxury London properties which were not disclosed on his family wealth statement. But it wasn't just politicians. The files named billionaires, celebrities, and sports stars. For example, Jackie Chan and Emma Watson. While many of their activities were not illegal, they raised questions about tax morality and the use of tax havens. The Panama Papers provided undeniable proof of a global shadow financial system built for one purpose: anonymity. After the scandal of the Panama Papers, Mossack Fonseca was forced to shut down in 2018, but the system didn't go anywhere. A new leak in 2021, this time called by the media Pandora Papers, was even bigger: 11.9 million files from 14 different offshore firms. The leak showed that many of the Mossack Fonseca's clients had simply moved their business to other similar firms. The system of anonymity is based on three fundamental pillars. The first and most basic tool is the shell company. Imagine a company that exists only on paper. It has no office, no employees, and no real business. Its sole purpose is to hold assets, cash, stocks, real estate, yachts, while hiding the identity of the true owner. It's a legal entity created solely to separate an asset from its owner. Creating a shell company is not too hard in some jurisdictions. In many places, you can register a shell company online in a few hours for just a few $100s. The trick is to register it in a jurisdiction that offers extreme corporate secrecy. But to really be able to set up a company in such jurisdiction, you will probably need a so-called nominee director. What a director is a person who has controlling authority over a company and makes decisions for a company. A nominee director doesn't and is accustomed to taking instructions from the real director. The person setting up a shell company pays a firm like Mossack Fonseca to appoint someone else, often a low-level employee, as the company's official director. Their name appears on thousands of company documents, acting as a legal front, so the real beneficial owners stays completely invisible. As a second pillar, you need a tax haven. Probably when you hear tax haven, you think about a Caribbean island like the Cayman Island, and you're not wrong. These places are key, they're famous for having low taxes, but low taxes is not everything. Its most important feature is secrecy. These jurisdictions have incredibly strict law protecting corporate and banking privacy. They often have no public record of who owns companies, and the courts will refuse to cooperate with foreign tax authorities unless they're handed proof of a serious crime, which is hard to get when you don't know who you're looking for or what you're really investigating. You really need more information to start from. But the island stereotypes is outdated. The Tax Justice Network Financial Secrecy Index reveals that some of the biggest enablers of financial secrecies are the world's wealthiest countries. The United States was numbered the number one jurisdiction for financial secrecy, surpassing traditional havens like Switzerland. This is largely because certain states like South Dakota, Delaware, and Nevada have become global hotspot for hiding wealth through ultra-secretive trust law. Another very important player is the United Kingdom and its overseas territory, like the aforementioned Cayman Island, but also British Virgin Island. As a third pillar, you need a professional. There is a global network made up of elite law firms, major accounting firms, and the world's biggest bank that work to enable tax evasions and other financial crimes. Law firms like the now defunct Mossack Fonseca are part of this network. According to the 2021 Panama Papers investigation, another major architect and pillar of the system of corruption is the global firm Baker McKenzie. The investigator of the ICIJ claimed that Baker McKenzie lobbied against proposals intended to strengthen financial regulatory oversight and anti-money laundering rules on behalf of multinational banks, help creating so-called free zone in the United Arab Emirates, which critics said encourage illicit financial activities through low tax and light regulation, and works with clients on setting up structures that minimize tax obligations. Along with the lawyers, there are the big banks. The Panama Papers showed that over 500 banks, including giants like HSBC and UBS, registered nearly 15,000 shell companies for their clients. These banks are often the entry point, helping their wealthy clients set up accounts for their anonymous new companies and moving billions into this shadow world, often with few questions asked. Finally, there are the big accounting firms, which advise multinational corporations on how to legally shift profit from high-tax countries to low-tax havens. So we have the three pillars: shell companies, tax havens, and enablers. How do they work together to make a fortune disappear? The most common method is to make the money trail so long and convoluted that no one can follow it. The Panama Papers, for example, detailed how money from a famous armed robbery in the UK was laundered. The stolen cash was moved through a series of front companies passed through banks in Switzerland and in the Isle of Man, and finally used to buy property. By the time the money was invested, it had passed through so many layers that it looked perfectly legitimate. This layering strategy is crucial. A wealthy individual doesn't use just one company, they use a confetti like scattering strategy, spreading assets across numerous offshore centers. One oligarch might have a shell company in the British Virgin Islands, which is owned by another shell company in Panama, which is held by a trust in South Dakota. The trust might hold a Swings bank account used to buy a yacht registered in the Cayman Islands. If the investigators pierce one layer, they just find another in a different part of the world with a different set of laws. It's a nightmare designed to defeat any investigation. And what is this system used to hide? Pretty much everything. The Pandora Papers reveal Shen companies holding luxury mansions, private jets, and even art by Picasso and Banksy. For example, King Abdullah II of Jordan was found to have spent over $100 million on luxury homes in Malibu and London, all bought through a network of secretly owned offshore companies. For the leader of a country that relies on foreign aid, openly buying such properties would be a political disaster. The offshore system allowed him to maintain an illusion of modesty. This secret game of hidden wealth might seem distant, but its consequences are very real, and we are the one who pay the price. The most direct impact is the loss of tax revenue. The Tax Justice Network estimates that the world loses around $492 billion in tax every single year to global tax abuse. One projection suggests tax havens could cost countries $4.7 trillion over the next decade. This is money that should be funding hospitals, schools, infrastructures, just public services in general, while most people have taxes automatically taken from their paychecks. The super rich are playing by different rules. For example, the IRS, which is the United States tax agencies, has claimed that Microsoft owned $29 billion in back taxes from its profit shifting, and Facebook's owned $9 billion from its own offshore schemes. This lost revenue creates a vicious cycle of inequality. When government can't collect taxes from the wealthiest, they have two choices: cut public services or raise taxes on anyone else. The tax burden shifts down into small businesses or middle-class families, while those at the very top accumulate even more untaxed wealth. It creates a system where the rich get richer. This system also destroys public trust. When people see their leaders speaking out against corruption while secretly using offshore accounts to buy a $22 million French chateau, as the Prime Minister of the Czech Republic was found to have done, it breeds cynicism and erodes faith in democracy. It sends a clear message: there is one rule for the elite and another for anybody else. And finally, the offshore system is a paradise for money launderers. Tax evasion is only one type of crimes that thrive in secrecy. The same secrecy that protects billionaires' yacht also protect the cash of drug cartels, human traffickers, and corrupt officials who have looted their own countries. The Panama and Pandora Papers were a massive wake-up call. They sparked global outrage, brought down government, and triggered investigations around the world. In the years since, there has been some progresses. Nearly a decade after the Panama Papers, governments have managed to recoup almost $2 billion in back taxes and penalties as a direct result of the investigation. In addition, the scandal gave a huge push for reforms. Many countries created public registers of beneficial ownership, aiming to end the anonymity of shell companies. Anti-money laundering laws were tightened, and international cooperation on tax matters gained momentum. In theory, it is getting harder to hide. However, the offshore world is like a hydra, cut off one head and two more grow back. The system is adapting. Instead of old school heavens, the wealthy are using new tricks, like the golden passport. By buying citizenship from a tax friendly country, a person can open bank accounts under a new nationality, shielding their assets from the home country. The world of decentralized finances, which has exploded in the past few years with the evolution of cryptocurrency, also presents new, unregulated frontiers for hiding wealth. But the biggest challenge is the lack of political will from the world's most powerful nations. As we saw, the United States and the UK are two of the biggest enablers of financial secrecy. They talk tough on tax evasion while allowing massive loopholes on their own backyards. In 2024 and 2025, the United Nations started some negotiation for the United Nations Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation, aimed at improving multinational taxation, reducing tax evasion, resolving disputes, and strengthening international cooperation. However, a small group of wealthy countries, including the United States, UK, Canada, and Australia, is the most vocal in opposing this initiative. The secret offshore is a parallel financial world built on the anonymity of shell company, the secrecy of tax haven, and the expertise of professional enablers. This system allows trillions of dollars to be drained from the real economy, fueling inequality, starving public services, and enabling crimes on a global scale. Leaks like the Panama and the Pandora Papers have given us an unprecedented look inside this shadow world. Transparency is the single greatest threat to this system. The more light we shine on these dark corners, the harder it will be for this secret world to operate. The battle is far from over, but understanding how the system works is the first crucial step toward dismantling it. If you also believe that knowledge is power and you want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe. My name is Julia. I'm a certified anti-money laundering specialist. Here on YouTube, I talk about money laundering, financial crimes, all of this stuff in my day job. I help businesses comply with anti-money laundering laws. Give me also a follow on LinkedIn if you want. I talk more about anti-money laundering there, more on a professional setting. And this is all for me now, and I'll see you on the next one.